Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dump and Change. Today our guest is men's hockey head coach Brett Larson. Coach Larson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
A place that we like to start with about everyone. So you grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, which is
hockey hotspot.
Yeah, avid hockey town. Was it kind of a given that you were going to start playing hockey? Did your family have a background in it?
Yeah, actually, my dad played at UMD as well, and so I grew up in hockey. There was a rink right across the street from our house, and literally every day after school, it's all we did. Like I'd grab my skates and throw my boots on and go over to the rink and just played with my buddies. So, I just grew up on the ice, really.
Did you always have like avid college dreams kind of following in your father's footsteps?
You know, I did a little bit. Back then at UMD, they really had it run. They had it rolling pretty good. I mean, they had a guy, Brett Hull was one of the best players, playing the NHL, and a group of guys, Bill Watson, Norm McIver, all these guys, the program had been down for a while, and all of a sudden they played in 2 NCAA Frozen Fours, and that's when I was like 12 or 13, and actually my neighbor behind the house, or right across the alley from us, he played on the team. He didn't play a ton, but he played on the team, and his dad was a big fisherman and always have fish fries over, so I'd be the little kid over there following Brett Hall and these guys around while they were having a walleye fry. And so for me, yeah, it was kind of my blood. I grew up with it. It's really all I wanted to do.
And you have a sister and a brother?
Yep.
Did they play?
Well, it's funny because my sister didn't. She was, well, she'll laugh if she sees this. She was the non-athletic one in the family for sure.
There's always one.
And she doesn't deny that. She's done great in her life, though. She's a high school counselor up in Cloquet now, and my brother played. And the funny story about my brother was he was a good multi-sport athlete. He was actually a pretty good football player too, and he was an okay hockey player. I'll give him that.
Okay.
But his name's Reed Larson, and you might not know, but way back, this is going a while now, he's probably 60-some years old, great guy, but there was a really famous NHL defenseman named Reed Larson. Played for the Detroit Red Wings for a long time, all-star year after year. And so I'm out at the U.S. Select 16 camp, and I'm trying out. My dad had gone out there to watch it, and these scouts kept coming up to him, and they're like, Brett shoot the puck as hard as his brother? And at the time, my brother's like 11. And he was like, well, yeah, way harder. And they're like, wow, really? And another scout would come up, hey, do you think Brett's going to be as good as his brother? And my dad's like, well, yeah. Well, the people that put the program together had put Brett Larson's brother of NHL All-Star defenseman Reed Larson when we had filled out the bio with my brother's name, which was Reed Larson, on there. So all these scouts thought I was a famous NHL defenseman's brother, and probably helped me make the team that year.
Yeah, I was going to say you had a little advantage there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you played high school all 4 years in Duluth, right?
Yep.
Was juniors a thing?
You know what? Not
then?
as much as it is now. So juniors has really grown. Back then, a lot of the guys came right out of high school and played.
Okay.
There were still, good junior players, and maybe outside of Minnesota a little bit more. But in Minnesota at the time, usually you went right from high school to college.
And high school hockey, I'm sure, was
great.
Pretty good in Minnesota then too.
It was really good. It was, it's funny. You grow up in Minnesota, you don't even really think about pro hockey all that much. All you don't want to do is play in the state tournament.
Right.
That's
it's such a big thing.
Biggest goal, and I was really fortunate to be able to do it twice, my 9th grade and 10th grade year. So got to play in front of the 18,000 people, and as a 15-year-old kid, and hardly made it out to the ice. I was so nervous, to be honest.
Did you win?
We went 2-1 each year, but didn't win the right ones. Yeah.
Dang.
So
Stings.
yes.
And then you were drafted.
Yeah.
Is that the same? It was the 11th round to the Red Wings.
Yep.
Right now there's 7 rounds.
There's 7 rounds.
So what was it like then?
What's
compared
funny
to now?
is we joke now that there's not even 11 rounds anymore. I always tell people I was the 3rd pick, but I don't tell them what round.
Okay.
So,
there you go.
No,
that's good.
So I was the 3rd pick of the 11th round. It's funny. I think back to that day. I was so excited about it. And the high school that I played for was called Denfeld. And I remember they did this big article in the paper. It said Denfeld's draftable defenseman. And me and my D partner were both on the NHL Central scouting list. He was a lot higher than I, and ended up playing at St. Cloud State. But the next day, he got a call around 3 in the afternoon. I mean, this is going back because, I don't have a cell phone. There's not
Yeah.
It's not, Twitter. You can't go on
Yeah.
Twitter to see who's drafted, whatever. So I'm waiting around, nothing. Finally, it's 10 o'clock. I'm like, well, I guess it didn't happen. And I go to a grad party and some friends. And I remember my mom called me at the house at like 11:15 at night saying, Detroit just called. They just drafted you. So I kind of envisioned there were like these scraps of paper on the floor and some names on it. And they were just trying to figure out who to pick that late because there wasn't anybody left. But it was still a big honor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
that's a super exciting moment for you. And then, so you went to college at Duluth shortly after that, and then take us through kind of your college years. What kind of stood out to you during that time period?
You know what? I think that a lot of who I am now as a coach comes from that time a little bit because, I was, as a freshman, I didn't play every game. I was in and out of the lineup. I remember my roommate would play Friday nights. I would play Saturday nights, and we were in this rotation. And I feel like, I can still relate to the players going through how hard it is to be out of the lineup.
Yeah.
And I remember, I didn't make a trip to Boston University, and I was left back at home. And, man, that's a lonely 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough. And you feel like you're missing out on everything. And then even when you're not in the lineup and the team wins and, if it's a Saturday night and everyone's having some fun, you just don't feel
Right.
Yeah.
as part of it as much. And, like, I don't think people, unless you go through that, can realize how hard that is. And so,
Yeah.
my first year in and out of the lineup pretty much all year. Second year, more of a regular, but still, we won the league that year. We had a great team, but I was still kind of I was the guy that, was just about to get up for my shift, and then there's a penalty, a power play, or a penalty kill. I'm like, oh,
Every
crap,
time.
right back down to my spot. I'm not getting out there again. And then
Yeah.
I'm about to get up, and there's another penalty.
Yeah.
And, so that
the
was my
curse.
sophomore year. I had this seat on the bench for a great team, though, and we won the league that year, came really close to make the Frozen Four. A lot of guys went on to the NHL from that team, so it was really fun. And then my role grew as a junior. I was on the power play now. I was
You
playing
lit
a
it
lot.
up junior year.
Junior year, somehow the puck went in the net from the only year of my life that I actually scored a lot of goals. I was never known as a good finisher with the puck, unfortunately. But junior, senior year, had good years, contributed a lot, learned the other side of it, learned what it's like to kind of expect to play every game. And now this pressure that brings to be a player that is counted on to be a difference maker in the game. So senior year was captain, around a great group of guys. And, I was really, looking back, just really enjoyed my college career.
Did you always want to play at Duluth?
It's funny. I kind of did just because all my, it's another funny story I remember is moving into the dorms my freshman year. They weren't dorms. You were lucky back then. You didn't have to live in the dorms your freshman year. You lived in the on-campus apartments, which was nice. And there was an apartment right across the hall, and it was 4 girls, and we got to know them and whatever. And one of the girls was from Duluth, and she goes, I grew up idolizing those hockey players. And she goes, now I know you, and it just totally ruins it. So I kind of grew up idolizing those guys. I wanted to play there. And my dad had played there, and my uncle had actually played there too. So, but you know what? I took some visits and thought about it a little bit. But at the end of the day, I thought playing in front of family and friends and playing there would be a lot of fun, and it was.
Yeah, being the hometown hero. Were you like a
Well, that goes
legend
both
there?
ways, right? Because being the hometown kid that's not in the lineup and everyone asking you why
Right.
you can't get in the lineup and the pressure of that
Right.
is on the other end. It's tough too.
Yeah.
And then when the team's losing, that's not a fun time when you're the hometown kid either.
Right.
So there's a good and bad with that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with like having family there too, like was your dad ever harping on you at games and stuff?
He wasn't that kind of dad, fortunately. He
Gotcha.
wasn't, I just remember after a bad game, he would just kind of go, well, that was it. He wouldn't say much more. And he knew it. I knew it. And,
Yeah.
Quiet ride home.
Yeah, he wasn't really the guy to get on me for that kind of stuff. So I was pretty lucky that way. We had all the fans to get on us enough when you were winning.
Oh, I'm
so.
sure.
Was it like sold out arena every night?
It was like it was back in the old arena before the new one they're in now. It was a real small ice sheet, a little bit smaller building. Sellouts most nights, obviously, especially when you're playing the North Dakotas and Minnesotas and the
Right.
rivalry teams. So it was a really good atmosphere that way.
And then you went on to play numerous years of professional hockey, correct?
Yes.
Overseas in North America, all over the place?
I played all over the place. It's funny how it just kept going somehow. I always just loved playing hockey. I
Yeah.
did. And maybe I didn't want to get a real job too. I don't know, a mix
Yeah.
of both. But, it started rough. I went over to Sweden right out of college, and I get over there, and there's a government strike that goes on. The entire country, all the government workers shut down. So that included the hockey rinks. The government owns the hockey rinks in Sweden. So I was sitting over there for 3 months without playing hockey. Asked the team if I could leave. They said no. And I literally, in the middle of the night, got on a train, went down to Stockholm, bought a plane ticket, and left the country and went home. And they held my, back then you had a card with the International Ice Hockey Federation. They wouldn't release it. So I got home, and I was just so homesick over there. They weren't playing. It was a bad deal. I wish I would have handled it different now looking back. But so I get home. There's one league called the Colonial Hockey League that doesn't have an agreement with the International Ice Hockey Federation. There's a team in Madison, Wisconsin, coached by Mark Johnson, who's now coaching the women's team at Wisconsin. And I ended up going down to play for Mark, and I had a really good experience playing for him and learning from him, and which turned kind of what could have been a bad year into a fun one.
Sweet.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I literally, so the part of the story I left out is I was in a small town in northern Sweden. They found out whether I bought I bought the plane ticket at a travel agency in the town before I got on the train that night. And the travel agent knew our coaches and told somebody in the organization. So I'm at the airport in Stockholm the next morning, and I feel a tap on my shoulder when I'm in the ticket line. They track me down and made me get my skates back because they had bought my skates. So it was a really, again, wish I would have handled it a lot different, but just one of those obviously experiences that you grow up in.
Why wouldn't they let you leave?
That's the hard part. There was no hockey. I mean, we were just training off the ice. I mean, I was turning into a great runner. I was learning how to play soccer, which I was horrible at, but there was no hockey. And they kept believing that strike was going to end. And it took like another month and a half, almost 2 months for the strike to end after I left. So I would have been there for like 5 months just playing soccer, which was not what I wanted to be doing.
No.
So not a bad idea. You got out when you could.
So I was, and everything worked out. I just wish I would have been more honest with them and not tried to steal my skates.
Yeah.
Well, they might
they
not
got
let
'em
you
back.
leave though.
Yeah.
So, and then when did coaching start coming into the picture?
Wow,
You were a player coach, right?
Yeah.
What is
Yes. So, long story. So this goes, so now I leave Madison. I signed in San Diego, which was great. Our head coach, Steve Martinson's a St. Cloud State alum, played in the NHL. I get out to San Diego, and I just love it, but I'm still trying to move up. So if the equivalent of what people know the most is like baseball, with AAA is the league right below the major leagues, and then AA and then single A. So San Diego was AA, and I was trying to get up to that top league. So I got there. I was getting called up all the time there was a AAA team and called the IHL, International Hockey League in Long Beach, which was just up the road. There was one in Utah, in Salt Lake City. There was one in Las Vegas. So we were independent, so I could get called up to any of those teams. So I was getting called up to all of them. And one funny story from that time period was my coach called me, said, "Hey, you just got called up to Long Beach tonight." They had a goalie, Nikolai Abibulin, who was an all-time NHL great. He was on a contract holdout playing there that year. Dan Bilesma was the captain, Dan is now the head coach of the Seattle Kraken, won the Stanley Cup head coach in Pittsburgh. He was the captain that year. So anyway, coach just tells me that I got called up, so I got to drive up from San Diego. I'm going to go play that night in Long Beach. So I get called up, go into the locker room, and I put my gear in a stall, and I'm there pretty early, and I'm stretching, and Avi Bullen walks in, and Bilesma, and all these guys, and just kind of getting ready to play the game, and the coach walks in like a half hour later, and he goes, "Larson, what are you doing here?" I go, "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" I go, I got called up. He goes, "Not to us, you didn't. I got called up to Utah, who was playing in Long Beach that night." So I had to
You're in the
pack
wrong
up my
office.
bag. I was in the wrong locker room. So I had to pack up all my stuff, go down to the Utah locker room, put my stuff in there, and play against Long Beach that night. So that was part of minor league hockey at the time.
How did you do in that game?
I always used to joke that whenever I get called up, I was the highest paid player in the league per shift.
Okay.
Because I didn't get many shifts.
Okay.
And, my salary was very high per shift whenever I get called up.
Okay, well, you made the most of your opportunities then.
Yes. So then as it got to year 2, year 3, year 4, Actually, year 3. Back then in the minors, because of budgets and stuff, they didn't have an assistant coach. They had what was called a player assistant coach. So I knew I wanted to get into coaching someday, so I took that job. You're not coaching in the game at all. So in the game, you're just a player.
Okay.
But recruiting, practice planning, things like that, you're kind of learning and helping the head coach. So you're not, saying who's going to be on the power play or not, because obviously I'd put myself in the power play. So that I got into that coaching part of it and really liked it and knew I wanted to be a coach. And then after my 4th year in San Diego, I got a call from an agent, said, hey, you had a good year. I had made the All-Star team that year. I got called up a little bit again. There's a team in Germany that would love to have you come over and play for them. I was just getting engaged at the time. Decided, hey, we're going to get married that summer. Let's go over there for a year, keep our place in San Diego. Well, a year turned into 6 over in Europe, and ended up having that experience of playing over there and just loved it. Like, life experience was awesome. So loved that 6 years. And then when I got done with that, had a job, real job for a year. Moved back to Minnesota, bought a house in Woodbury down in the cities, and I got a job with a pharmaceutical company. And when they hire you for a pharmaceutical company, they just don't tell you what your product is going to be. So my product turned out to be Similac infant formula. I have
like
no kids,
sales? You're
never
doing
had
sales?
a kid. I'm sales. So I'm going into orthopedic clinics, into hospitals. I'm doing seminars and lectures on breastfeeding for nurses and selling Similac infant formula for a year of my life. So I've got some interesting stories about that time in my life as well. Yeah.
That seems so random.
Yes. All my buddies were in. It was a great company, Abbott Laboratories. I was so excited. And then I'm, for some reason, after my interview, they thought I'd be great at selling infant formula. Yeah.
And then you decided you didn't want to do that anymore and wanted to go back to the hockey world?
So it had been about a year, and it's funny because Scott Sandlin, the current head coach at UMD right now, called, and he said, Brett, I'm looking for a coach to work with the D, and I'd like to have an alum, and you're the only guy I know. You want to get back into hockey?
Okay.
And I said, yes, I'd love to. So I got really lucky with, so lucky with, most guys have to go through junior hockey and high school hockey and all these different steps to get to the level I got to. And, I was fortunate. I'd go back to Duluth in the summers and work the hockey camps and got to know Scott. So we had a personal relationship. And that was how I got my first college job. I was selling infant formula and got a call from the head coach at UMD and got offered a job.
Funny how those things work out.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems like coaching was just calling you back.
It was, and I felt so fortunate to do it because it's the oldest cliche and whatever. But I honestly, I'm a busy guy, but I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life. I love it. I love it. I love coming to the rink every day.
So you coached for a few years at Duluth, and then you went to was the Sioux City next?
City. So I was at Duluth for 3 years. We won the national championship in 2011 in St. Paul, and then I just felt like I got into coaching later and older. I knew I wanted to be a head coach college someday. It was really starting to drive me that's what I wanted to do. And at the time, and still today, a lot of college assistants would take head coach jobs in the USHL. It's a great training ground to become a head coach. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stress. You're developing really good players that are all going on to pro hockey, that are going on to college hockey as well. It's really high level, and it was a great 2 years for me to really learn and grow as a coach.
Okay. What was the experience like winning a national championship?
That was pretty special because it was the school's first. And to be a part of that, to beat a school like Michigan, who would have been their 10th, it was an overtime in Minnesota at the X. Like, you couldn't have added it up any better. It was unbelievable. It was really, really fun to be a part of. It's almost hard to describe in words how all that worked. And to be honest, I equate that to here. That's what we want to do here. We want to be able to win that first one here. We want to be able to do that for these fans, this community, this school, for this program. It's been, so close so many times in the NCAA, so close, 4 years ago now already of making it to the national championship game. I just want our players to experience that feeling. I want this program to experience that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because you were the first coach that brought St. Cloud now to the national championship game, right?
Yeah, and it's so hard looking back at that game because there's so much to be proud of. And yeah, we come out and, Viti knocks one off the crossbar early. We're kind of all over them, and how that game, we felt like it could have gone and it just didn't go our way. It's so hard to get that close and not win that game.
Yeah.
And it haunts me. It really does. And I think
bet.
for all the guys in that team, because you've got this mixed emotion of being so proud that you're the first to get to that game.
Yeah.
But then to have it go the way that it did, it was tough. But I really think it drives us every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It drives us every day to get back there and have another chance.
Yeah, I feel like also when you're like not necessarily anticipating going there, the second you start winning those like one-on-one games and like making your way up in the tournament, you kind of get to the point where it's like it's us. It's going to be us, Yes. And then so just to get there and
we had a big hurdle that year too, and I'll never forget it. I think one of the coolest stories of that run was in the first game in the NCAAs, we're playing Boston University, and it had been a tough run for St. Cloud in the opener of the NCAA tournament. We lost not the year before, but we lost a few years ago to AIC when we were the number 1 overall seed. It had happened a couple other times. It was kind of hanging over the program a little bit. And we're up by 2 goals midway through the third, and the glass gets broken, and there's a delay. And all of a sudden, I hear my players going, "No effing way, no effing way." They're swearing, they're kicking. Now they kicking the boards, they're slamming their sticks. I'm like, what's going on? Well, I look up, and they're showing the highlights of St. Cloud losing to Ferris State, losing to Air Force, losing to AIC in those games, and talking about could it happen again, I guess, on the TV. But they're showing, and our players are seeing it. And I was just so proud of that team for just after that timeout, we came out and went right back after them. We scored another goal, extended the lead. And it was really, really proud moment, I think, for this program and that team to win that game. And then Boston College was absolutely loaded that year.
Yeah.
And to beat them that next game to make it to the Frozen Four was pretty sweet.
Yeah. What did you say to your players when after seeing something like that, kind of rein them back in? Yeah.
I just said, "You're effing right, guys. We're going to do this."
Let's do it.
And kind of galvanize the team, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So after Sioux City, did you go back to Duluth or did you go to?
I had one more stop in there. I went to Ohio State for 2 years.
Okay.
So one of my good friends, Steve Rollick, who's the head coach there now, he and I were assistants together my first time at Duluth, and he got the head coach job that year at Ohio State and asked me to come with him and help try to build that program. And I thought in my head, okay, I've got 2 years of head coach experience here in Sioux City. Really enjoyed it. We were bad at times, which was really important to learn how to get through that.
Yeah.
And at times we were really good and was really proud of some of the things we did there and what we built. But decided to go with Steve to help build that program. And ironically, what was really, really cool about it, after 2 years there, I went back to Duluth. And that year, back at Duluth, it wasn't that first year, our third year, we ended up playing Ohio State in the Frozen Four.
Really?
And had either coached or recruited a lot of that team, and Ohio State was really close with a lot of those guys.
That's crazy.
And so it was just a really fun game. It was a 2-1 game that could have gone either way. And I know, obviously, for them, a great year. For Ohio State, Steve had done an amazing job and whatnot, but it was fun to see those two programs to come together in such a big game.
Who won?
I was at Duluth and we won because we won our second national championship that year. We beat Notre Dame the next night.
Okay.
And another 2-1 win, which for me personally ended up being great timing because we won that one in St. Paul, and that's when the Huskies job opened up.
Okay.
Does it feel like a little bit more special beating teams that you have previously coached or like recruited players at, like even now?
That one was mixed. Like, obviously, unbelievably glad we won that game. For sure, you're competitive, you want to win. But there was a little bit of me that I was really proud of what they had done too, and what Steve had done, and I wanted them to win a Frozen Four, just not that year, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
If that makes sense. So, but there is. I mean, obviously, when we played Duluth, that's become an even bigger rivalry, and it's a fun one. They want to beat us really bad, and we want to beat them really bad, and it's a really fun rivalry for sure. So yeah, it's just like, I kind of equate it to when you're a little kid, you want to beat your best friend and whatever you're playing in. It's kind of the same sometimes.
Yeah. And Sandy's still there too. So
exactly. So it's a fun rivalry.
Yeah.
We're 5-5 in the last 10, so we gotta hopefully.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So then, when did USA start coming into the picture?
So that started, well, actually my first year at Sioux City, I got the head coach for Team USA in the World Junior A Challenge, and my assistant coach was RJ Inga, who's here with me now, which is pretty cool. And that was a really fun team. We had a lot of guys that went on to the NHL. We ended up winning the gold medal up in Nova Scotia, and that was my first taste of coaching at the international level, which was a blast. And then I think it was my second year here at St. Cloud State. Scott Sandlin got the head job with the World Juniors, brought me along as his assistant. Really enjoyed that. Coached, we had Zegras and Caulfield, and team was a really good team. It was a really young team. They were all first-year guys that year. And then second time World Juniors was last year with Dave Carl, head coach at Denver, and winning the gold in Sweden was unbelievable experience.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty cool.
How do you get into this? Is there an application?
It's all who you know. I was really fortunate to coach in the Olympics too in 22 in Beijing, which was great. And man, it's all just, to be honest, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I've been fortunate to know some good people that have been given good opportunities and been able to go and support those guys. It's funny. Denver's a big rival for us. I want to beat them every time we play them. Obviously, they ended their season last year in overtime. That was tough. We won that game. There's a chance we're in the NCAA tournament. And, but just working for David and seeing how he coaches and what he does, I learned a lot from him. And I think for me, it helps me keep growing, Working for David Quinn, who's now an assistant and was the head coach in San Jose, is assistant in Pittsburgh now. Learned a ton from him. The other assistant, one of them was Mike Hastings, who's the head coach at Wisconsin. Now you just learn from these people. So the biggest thing for me is, have I enjoyed it? Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. I mean, being in Beijing for the Olympics and being in a couple World Juniors has been a great experience. But just what you learn from being around some of the best coaches in the world is pretty fun.
I can imagine. And you're going back this year coaching World Juniors?
Yes.
And where's that one at?
This one's in Ottawa. So something I've always wanted to do is be part of a World Junior in Canada, because growing up in Minnesota, in the States, you just don't know how big that tournament is. You have no idea. I mean, until I got into recruiting, and I'll never forget my first year recruiting at Duluth, we always go up to, it's called the Max tournament. It's up in Calgary. It's a big midget tournament that everyone recruits. I remember getting off the plane, being in a hotel bar going, and World Juniors was on, and that whole country was like, this is it. This is a huge deal.
Really?
And I mean, they're interviewing everybody. I think they're down to the stick boy by the time they got done doing their interviews, and it was crazy. And just seeing how big that tournament is internationally, especially in Canada, I'm excited to go up there and be a part of it this year.
Yeah, that'll be sweet.
Yeah, we were wondering, does coaching the World Juniors team, does that kind of help, do you think, facilitate recruiting and stuff too? Yeah. I
think so. I think it does. I think World Juniors is just such a big event, and whenever you're a part of it, obviously, we can kind of use that in our recruiting a little bit, talking to kids about those experiences and whatnot. So I think that's why the school is, obviously I usually miss a game, if not two, but I think it's worth it for recruiting, and I think it's worth it because St. Cloud State's being talked about on an international level. And so I think it really helps us, our program and our school as a whole.
When you stepped into your role as head coach at St. Cloud, were you nervous at all? Did you feel prepared for it? What were you thinking?
Yeah. I was really nervous.
Yeah.
For sure. I remember the first game just going, man, can I do this? I remember talking to head coaches about how do you handle the stress? How do you handle the pressure? Because I honestly, looking back, there were times when I felt like I couldn't even breathe really. And every coach has a different stress or different pressure, right? My pressure was this program had been great. Like Bob had done, those guys done a great job. This program was rolling. I mean, they were in the NCAA tournament almost every year. You don't want to be the guy to come in and screw it up.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the pressure that I felt. And my goal was just to make sure that we keep going in the right direction, that this program continues to be one of the best in the country every year. So I felt a lot of pressure throughout. Yeah, I guess you always do as a head coach. It's just part of the job. Is
it different or kind of the same as the pressure that you feel as a player?
Totally different. Yeah. The one thing I loved about being a player is I felt a lot of pressure for sure before the game, during the week, all those things. But once the puck dropped and you got in the game, you get to play. Mm-hmm. Now as a coach, you still feel that pressure the whole game. You're just standing back there and you can't do anything about it.
Right.
So it's a little different that way. I mean, as a player, and I talked to our players about this, I remember Sunday morning coming along sometimes and just going, oh, it's a Sunday. I can at least breathe today. And I don't have that pressure today. And I think as a coach, I'm constantly trying to get our guys to take a little of that pressure off themselves. Like, the only pressure should be that, have you put the work in? Have you prepared?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Like, if you've done all those things, then just go out and play.
Yeah.
And try to enjoy it as much as you can.
Yeah.
And I know that's way easier said than done, but it's something I remember from being a player that I really try to instill in the team that, as long as you've taken care of everything you can take care of, then go out and play and enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. So transitioning a little bit, how big of a role has your family played in your success as a player, coach, all that?
You said you got engaged when you were playing pro in California.
Yep. And so we got married right before we went over to Europe. So our whole life has been hockey, really.
Yeah.
And, there's good and bad to it. Yeah, I mean, you miss a lot as a coach. You miss a lot of things with your family.
Yeah.
You miss, now this Christmas, I'm going to miss Christmas. Last year it worked out great because my family could come over. They had Christmas and then came over right after. This year, now that my son is into high school hockey, they'll have games. So, they won't be able to come this year. So there is a lot of sacrifice on both sides. And I think that's the thing that is hard because as a dad, you definitely have some times where you feel a lot of guilt for missing some things with your kids, for sure. And your wife has to be unbelievably understanding because you're on the road a lot.
Yeah.
And you're gone a lot. So I've been really fortunate to have that support at home, the whole time I've been a coach, because you can't do it without that.
Yeah.
If you don't have the support at home, there's no way you can be out doing what you do because it doesn't end. I mean, June and July are our busiest recruiting months. We're on the road.
Yeah.
I'm gone pretty much every weekend for June and July, and so is our staff. So there is a huge commitment that way. I would say at times I haven't done a very good job of it, trying now to be more intentional to, find things that we can find areas and times that we can spend a little more time together. And part of that may be because I see my kids getting older and seeing that time going by.
When did you and your wife meet?
Well, she's from Duluth too. So
Okay.
yeah, she's from Duluth as well. So I've basically known her
Really?
most of my entire life. We weren't dating or anything anything like that. But she actually ended up going out to San Diego to go to San Diego State University with a
Really?
group of girls from Duluth when I was out there. So that's kind of
Okay.
Convenient.
Yes.
And then, so did she come to Germany?
Yep. So
With
we
you?
got married right before we went to Europe. So that was a great experience to be a young couple and be over there because you got a lot of free time, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you get to travel a lot. And Sundays would be day trips in a car to some little town somewhere. And a couple days off, we'd jump on a train and go to a different country.
Yeah.
So pretty cool experience.
Kind of like an extended honeymoon, if you will.
Yes.
5 years, 6
Yeah, that's
years.
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And then your son is in high school now.
He is. He'll be a sophomore this year. Yep.
Okay, and you have a daughter as well.
Daughter, yeah, she's 10. I've tried to get her to play hockey.
I was going to
She would be
ask.
a great hockey player. I ask her at least weekly if she'll play. She has gotten so into gymnastics that it seems like it's all she's doing right now. She loves it. And she doesn't want to give up any time with that. But she's a really good skater, and she's really aggressive. And
Okay.
I think she'd be a great player, and she just won't listen to
She
her
just
dad.
doesn't like it, or?
She just won't. I don't know. She just won't do it. I think she thinks it's going to take away from gymnastics somehow.
Okay.
And,
She's just dedicated.
Yes, she's so dedicated to that. But it bums me out because I know she'd be really good.
Yeah.
She needs to come hang out with us.
I know.
We'll get her in it.
I know.
Yeah, definitely.
But gymnastics is pretty
It's
intense.
an intense sport. There's a big time commitment too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like 4-hour practices, four or 5 nights a week. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And I
That's
ask her every day,
insane.
"Do you love it?" She's like, "Yeah, I love it." I'm thinking, "You better." I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of time you're putting into it.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So as a coach, I feel like most of the time we see you pretty calm, composed, but you can like fire up when you need to. Do you think that as a dad of kids that play sports, you're kind of similar in that way, or?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I would say my kids don't see me mad very often, but
Mm-hmm.
they would say they can tell when I'm getting mad real
Yeah.
quick. It's something I do with my lip when I start biting it. They say, when you start biting your lip, we know it's coming.
You gotta tell.
Yeah, so I've got to tell it that way. But yeah, I'm fortunate to have, at least I think they're pretty good kids, right?
Yeah.
Every parent does, but they've been good. And I'm kind of slow to anger, but if I get ticked, they know it's coming.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty funny.
And with your son being in high school hockey now, how is your guys' relationship when you go to his games or he has a bad game? Does he get kind of like annoyed with you if you try to teach him some things?
He's that typical, well, I don't know typical, but teenage kid that, boy, it's tough to pull stuff out of him as far as getting him to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, I have asked him a few times. I think being a coach's kid sometimes is tough because, people maybe expect certain things out of him or expect him to be a certain player or different things. And he's kind of been a late bloomer a little bit, which has been kind of fun. He never, when he was young, he didn't make all the top teams, but as he got a little bit older, he started to, and he's had to work for it. So that's been fun to see. He's got a really good group of friends, and it's where we live has been a great community, and the sports side of it's been really good. So I feel like he's been fortunate that way, and so have we. I'm kind of like my dad. I don't yell at him after a bad game.
Yeah.
But the car is really quiet. And I think,
he knows.
Just let him sit and think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows. And if he asks me what I think, I'll tell him.
Yeah.
And you know what? Because I've always thought, like, I want him to believe me when I tell him that he's played a good game. If he asks me how he played, I got to tell him when he's played a bad one too. And so that's kind of how we've gone about it. I enjoy it. I love watching him play. He quit baseball last year, which bummed me out because I don't know why, but I just really enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
So it's fun watching your kids. I love watching my daughter when I can with her gymnastics. I love watching him play.
Yeah.
But something about hockey and being a hockey parent, I don't know. I feel those nerves up there when I'm watching him play a little bit too. So,
I bet.
But I enjoy it.
That's really cool.
Does he have the aspirations to play in college?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, all these kids do, right? They'd love to play someday. And, what's funny is what a lot of people don't realize is it's tough to make in college hockey. You guys know that. It's not easy. It's really tough. But there are a lot of really good opportunities out there that aren't Division I. Division III has got really good hockey.
Yeah.
And now it's funny. I've joked with him. I said, I think you should go to like University of Alabama or Georgia State or some of these schools that have these club teams that have like 3,000 people going to these games. It's crazy. And so club hockey has really grown and gotten better. So I think that for kids today that love playing hockey, there's some really cool opportunities. Yeah. And whether it's D1, D3, club, there's some really, really good opportunities to keep playing hockey after high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've seen videos on like Instagram and stuff.
It's
like
all
even like
over,
University of Kentucky and stuff. They like sell out the games and it's just club. Like they get more people at their games than we do.
I know.
It's crazy.
I think it's pretty cool actually. So I think there's a lot of really good opportunities out there for kids that want to keep playing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shall we transition?
Yeah.
All right. We do
asked
have
our fans to write in.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have some questions for you. How do you like your eggs?
Eggs, I over medium.
Okay.
Okay. How many years since the last time you got your skates sharpened?
This is from Shane.
Oh man. I have no idea. So it's
So it's been a while.
It's been a while. I don't know if I've, as a coach, ever got them sharpened.
Really?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe
then
it's
that's a long
time.
time.
I did when I was an assistant because the one thing I miss about, and I was younger then too, but the assistants always play 3-on-3 with our guys after practice, and things like that I kind of miss. I'm sure I got them sharpened back then because I was competitive and you wanted to beat those guys. Our coaches are on a pretty good run right now, by the way, too. They've won the last few games on Friday mornings. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, they've been pretty good. I got to give them some credit.
Okay, so the coaches and the players do 3-on-3 on Fridays?
Yeah, so and it's always been a tradition wherever I've been, and I think it's important. So on Friday after kind of the pregame skate or whatever we're going through as a team, the hard part about college hockey is you got guys that aren't in the lineup. Yeah. And it's a tough day for them, right? And so we always have a 3-on-3 game with the coaches and those guys just to let them have some fun and enjoy it. And it's a good time for the coaches to spend with those guys. They can talk about personal things. They can connect with those guys during that time. And I kind of miss that a little bit as an assistant. It's a really good time to, I think, connect with your players.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that doesn't happen as much now that you're a head coach?
Probably not as much as it did then. You know, there's a little bit more of a line at times being a head coach where it's just a little bit different. I try to have personal relationships as much as I can with the players. It's important to me. I think it's important to them to have that connection with me too. But it's just a little bit different. The assistant can be as close to being their friend as they can without going over a certain line.
Definitely.
The line's just a little bit farther back for me. I don't know as much about the guy's personal life away from the rink as our assistants probably do.
Yeah, but I feel like we talked about earlier, you having the same experience in your college career helps with all of that. And maybe they don't even know that you went through the same thing. And does that, do your emotions ever get in the way, or do you have to like push them away and be like, this is business? Like,
Yes, yeah, I do. And well, our staff would tell you, and I think we're all like this. I think a lot of coaches are. We will spend the majority of our time on a Thursday morning figuring out who our 12th forward is and our 7th defenseman.
yeah,
And it's agonizing sometimes.
yeah,
And we always will say, hey, are we making this decision with our heart or with our head, and analyze that decision? Because a lot of times with your heart, you want to get a guy in the lineup really bad.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get him, you know how hard they've been working, you want to get him in, and you really got to do the best you can to make sure you're making that decision, probably with your heart and your head.
yeah,
Because it gets tough. We love these guys. Like, there's nobody on our team that I can't wait to sit out of the lineup.
right,
And that's the hard part. The hard part for them to understand. I don't expect them to understand that,
Yeah.
But it is a really hard part of the job is picking that lineup every Thursday.
yeah. I feel like
But it's a good thing
that's
too,
interesting.
because it means we like our team.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And we feel like any guy in our locker room can play. And, there's a lot of reasons that go into how you pick the lineup, and it's out of their control. That's the hard thing for players, right? All they can control is how they work and their attitude and all those things. But it is a tough day for the coaching staffs. Players probably don't realize, and I'm sure it goes no different for your
Yeah.
staff, how hard that day is.
yeah. That's interesting from our perspectives.
I
Like,
agree.
we've both been in positions like that, and I guess I've never like thought of like, well, I actually have thought like, has my coach ever been through this? Like when they're
Yeah.
so
Like, even if you're kind of like working hard or maybe working harder than somebody else,
yeah,
and like, I don't know, it still doesn't get the outcome that you kind of expect or you want.
Yep.
But obviously there's a lot more that goes into it that
yeah.
we don't really think about as much because we
Yeah.
just want
to
what's
play.
good for us.
You want to play.
We want to
Yeah.
play.
You want to play.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
sometimes it's hard because you may look at another player and think, gosh, I'm just as good or better as that player. And
Yeah.
then, you get into that thought process. and
comparison
The comparison
kills ya.
thing is tough as a player, right? And it's a road you really, if you can help it, you don't want to keep going down because
Right.
it doesn't help you. The only comparison you should have is compare it against yourself. Were you the best you could be today in practice? Was I?
Yeah.
And if you can look in the mirror and say, hey, I was, and I had a great week of practice. I did everything I could in the weight room. I got my sleep. I ate right.
Yeah.
I did all those things. Now it's up to the coaches. There's nothing I can do about it. And it doesn't mean you're going to be happy. I always tell the guys, I don't expect you to be happy. I don't expect you to just throw a big smile on your face and, you don't want to go negative where you're hurting
Yeah.
the team.
Yeah.
But it's okay to be disappointed.
Yeah. Favorite moment as a player and a favorite moment as a coach.
As a player, it's so hard to pick one.
I know.
You know what? It's just so hard to pick one. Like, I will say, somebody posted some pictures a while back of when we had won a championship. We won 2 championships when I was out in San Diego. And just all the boys in the locker room after, hats turned backwards, celebrating. Like, I don't know if there's a specific moment, but just those times with the guys in
Yeah.
a locker room after a big win.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coach, I would have to say Nolan Walker tipping the puck in against Mankato with 30 seconds left to go to the national championship game. I mean,
Insane.
a
it was
good one.
nuts. Jameis Donahue walking in the middle, throws a little snapshot at the net. I can just see it from the bench.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're going to play in our first ever national championship game was pretty cool.
Unreal.
That's crazy.
Is there a difference between those feelings as a coach and as a player?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like,
That's
do you feel like when you're a coach, like, oh, well, you feel more accomplished because, like, you did it? Or as a
No.
player, like,
I've
well,
never, honestly, I've never felt like I've done it. Like,
Yeah.
you don't feel that way as a coach. There's
Right.
no way you don't, because I didn't tip that puck in.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you might feel some validation of, okay, you're doing some good things as a coach,
Yeah.
but you never feel like you did it.
You did it, yeah.
So that's a little bit different. And as a player, like you looked up my stats, I could hardly ever score, so it was never me that did it either. But I don't know if it's different. I don't know. That sense of accomplishment at the end of the year is, only one team ends the year with a win. We all know
Yeah.
that, right? So when you win a championship, it just kind of makes, I don't know how to explain it. It just, you just feel like, okay, all the hard work was worth it.
Yeah.
You know? It was worth it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, you can pick one: Olympic medal, national championship, or Stanley Cup.
National championship. Here.
You heard it here.
Agreed.
We want it the first one here.
Yeah.
Like, I just want this place. We want it here.
Yeah.
And just for so many people, and not just us, for all the alumni, all the coaches, this university, this town even. Like, I want to do it for this place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drives us every single day. You know what, we're always the little guy, no matter what. Like, we're always viewed as the underdog, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
As good a season as we're having, we're going to be the underdog all the time.
Yeah.
And you know what? This university, this town gets that a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
And you guys know there's so many good people here. There's so many good things here. This place is awesome in so many ways. I just want to kind of, like, for the people that put us down a little bit here and there, I want to stick it to them a little bit.
Definitely.
And I want to show them that, no, it's freaking awesome here.
Yeah.
And we can do it here.
Yeah.
And so there's a strong motivation from our staff and our team to get it done here for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Oh, have you seen your team's TikToks, and what do you think of them?
Never.
Not
one.
a big
We'll have to
social
show you
media guy.
Not
after this.
one. I have my Instagram Reels guy.
Oh,
Okay.
My wife will tell you that I'm on it way too much. But I also learned the algorithms on these things. And so now that I'm 52, most of my stuff is health and longevity, golf,
Okay.
and stuff that old guys look at. Not a lot of TikTok stuff.
Do you ever send stuff into your team? Like, Brian always sends us, like, motivational Instagram reels that he sees.
I have not done that. I have not. I do send them to my son, and I think he gets a
Okay.
little annoyed with that. Or I send him things like I just saw the other day, the amount of radiation in iPods instead of the wired ones, and I told him he's going to get brain cancer if he keeps wearing those things. So that's the kind of stuff that I send to my kid,
Okay.
Pleasant.
which annoys the crap out of him.
Yeah, I think that would annoy me if my mom sent me that. Okay. If you could describe your game in one word, what would it be?
My game?
Yep.
My
We'll
player
start with
game.
as a player.
As a player,
Yep.
I was defensive. I mean, I defended first. I didn't have the talent to be a real high-end offensive player. So for me, it was I had to be consistent and defend and earn my spot in the lineup that way.
So would you say your strength was like your IQ?
Strength was my skating, actually.
Skating.
I could skate. I could make up for my mistakes with skating. I could close plays with my skating. I could defend the rush with my skating. And that's probably why my career didn't go the way I'd liked it to. I should have been an offensive guy because I could skate
Yeah.
and I could move the puck, but I wasn't dynamic offensively. So at my size, I kind of ended up being that in-betweener a little bit. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
They had 6'3", 210-pound defensemen that could do what I did in the NHL.
Yeah.
And the offensive guys were just way better than me.
That'll
Yeah.
do it.
So,
Okay.
What about as a coach?
as a coach, one word.
Yep.
Hmm.
He's like, so many things. I'm so many things.
One word. Hopefully, the guys would see me as honest. Like they
Okay.
know that we're in it for them. We're honest about what we're teaching. They know where they stand. Hopefully, they feel like we don't play head games,
Yeah.
and that we're an honest staff that they can trust.
Yeah. That's
Like
good.
that.
Yeah. I like that one. Do you have any pregame superstitions? Whether
Pregame.
that's while you're a coach now or when you were a player?
Yeah, I have to have the pregame nap. I just do. I need it.
Okay.
As a player and as a coach, like literally, I remember as an assistant when you were running around all day on a game day because you probably had a recruit here, you couldn't get home, whatever. I mean, I was like pillow under my desk type nap for 10, 15 minutes.
Like you have to
Yeah,
get
I
it
had
in.
to get my pregame nap in. Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's a short one though, always?
No, I mean, if I can, I'll do the 2-hour full shutdown, drool on the pillow, freaking not know where you are when you wake up nap, if I can get it.
Unable to be reached.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's I enjoy the pregame nap a lot. And one thing I
Okay.
like about road trips is, I get the time in the hotel after the team lunch, and
Yeah.
I usually go for a walk after lunch, and then go and just shut her down.
Okay.
Nice. What is the best piece of advice you could give to young hockey players?
Just have fun. Like, I know it's so simple, but just the pressure on kids in general drives me crazy. Well, it's both. Like, if you work hard and have fun, what else can you do?
Right.
I don't know. Like, and that's it. What more can you ask out of a kid? Like if you're working hard, if you're loving, because I feel like they go together. Like the guys that I've seen really excel, most of them just loved it.
Yeah.
And so if there's so much pressure that you're not having fun, it's hard to get better, I think.
Definitely.
So, enjoy it. Enjoy playing the game. You work hard and have fun. I know it sounds super simple, but I think simple sometimes is the best.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you look for when you are recruiting? Like, does character truly matter? What if you have a insane hockey player, not a great teammate?
So that's a really loaded question because so much goes into it, right?
Right.
Like, character does really matter, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you're looking for talent. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you.
Don't want somebody who sucks.
Kind of nice to win hockey games.
Yeah.
So somebody that can skate, shoot, score, pass, hockey
Those
sense,
things
all
are
those
good,
things
huh?
are really, they matter. The character thing really, really matters. Occasionally, if it's a really, really high-end player, is your culture strong enough to bring them in? What is the character defect? Do you think that around the right people, they can be a better person? Is it immaturity versus maybe selfishness? Because immaturity, can you help them grow up and become a better person? So it's a little tricky with that one.
Right.
The other thing is for a lot of people, and I don't know if you guys have sensed this at all, and I don't know where it starts for you. In the women's hockey game, I'd be curious to get your answers on this too. But for a lot of our guys, the first adversity they face is when they get to us. Meaning they've always been the best player.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every coach thinks they're great because they're on the power play, they're on the penalty kill, they play, they work hard, they're a good kid. Well, what happens the first time in your life you're on the fourth line or in the lineup or not on the power play?
Right.
It's the first real adversity. Well, that's where real character is shown. So that's the trick.
A lot of times you don't know. Yeah.
A lot of times you don't know until you get them.
Yeah. No, I feel like we've definitely seen that. Like there's some players that I've played with that can absolutely not handle being in that role, and then there's some that fully embrace it and that becomes their role, and they're such a good teammate, and that's a huge part of the team, the energy they bring and everything. So
yeah, I feel like it was kind of like told to me, like, yes, we all kind of felt like we were the better players on our team growing up, but it was kind of also made clear to us that like college is way different, and they didn't want us to have this expectation that, okay, you're going to go in there and play right away. Yeah. So I think, at least for me, they did a good job like kind of addressing that. But at the same time, I feel like the college coaches open it up in the way that's like, I'm not going to like promise you anything, but you can work for this. Like you can work towards this. So I think like we kind of knew what to expect, but at the same time, you never know until you're in the situation and you don't know how you're going to handle it. So, yeah. It's
not easy for sure, but
yeah.
How many women's games have you been to this year?
Every one at home.
Oh, you have?
Really?
Pretty close because I get there way before ours.
Right, you're at the rink all day.
So I usually come down and watch at the boards by the Zamboni end. So honestly, I don't catch the whole game.
Right.
But I catch.
You're busy.
I catch part
You're
of it.
busy. Yeah.
It's kind of you ask about superstitions. Like normally when I walk in the rink, I'll carry in my suit. I got my coffee, and I'll walk down the hallway and I'll go by the Zamboni doors and watch whatever's left in that period of your game.
Okay.
That's kind of
that's part of the ritual.
Superstition for me now.
I like it.
In that area. Yeah.
That's a good one.
How are you spending your time in this off weekend? Recruiting?
So recruiting, yeah. So we'll be on the road a little bit. Our staff will be out recruiting. Obviously now with Major Junior being eligible, there's a whole new recruiting pool to be out there looking at. So I'll be out doing some recruiting this weekend.
Nice. I believe your team is signing autographs at our game.
Yes, I would be at your game if I was in town.
Okay,
and hopefully we'll fill it, right? Hopefully we'll get a lot of people.
We'll fill the herb.
Right?
That's
I know. I know the team will be there signing autographs for sure. And if I wasn't going to be on the road, I would obviously be there too.
Nice. Yeah.
So good luck this weekend.
Thank you. All right. Yep. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
We will see you guys next time on Dump and Change.